What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video in the Street Build series, where today we're going to be covering the FC3S RX-7. So first, let's do a quick overview of the glory that is the RX-7. The second gen RX-7 came out in 1987 and will receive constant upgrades until 1995, and it was also nicknamed the Japanese Porsche 924. Akio Uchiyami, I hope I'm saying that right, is the person who designed the car, and he even mentions that he was inspired by the Porsche 924 whenever he was going about designing the RX-7. As I'm sure you guys know, the RX-7 is famous for its interesting engine, and that is the rotary. And let me tell you, this one packs a whopping 147 horsepower and 135 foot-pounds of torque, all made it up to a 5-speed manual transmission. With all that being said though, let's get into the build. First things first, we gotta go over wheels, tires, and suspension for this thing. First, starting with the wheels, and I think that these are gonna look sick on the RX-7, and that is the NKTS5 in an 18x8 plus 40 offset wheel in black, because you really can't go wrong with black. Now I gotta wrap this thing in some tires, and I think that the Nitto Neo Gen 225x40 ZR18 should be perfect, and that is because our later performance modifications that we're gonna make do not need that thick of a tire, but they're also nice because they are all season. Now we gotta focus on better handling, stancing this thing out, and also getting rid of that gross wheel well gap, and that is gonna be accomplished with the BC Racing BR Series coilovers. Now we're just going to start with the turbo kit because I think that's just a good baseline to work off of, and then whatever parts we're missing, whether that be supporting mods or just something else that we need to pack the amount of horsepower that the turbo kit recommends, we can work from there. But I think that the turbo kit is just a good baseline to start from, see what kind of parts we get right off the bat. Now this turbo kit comes from TurboSource, and they have it really nicely laid out. There's a lot of options that you can choose from different parts that you want with the turbo kit. Of course, you can always replace it with whatever you want and select no for certain options, but for the sake of just simplicity, we're just going to go ahead and go with their options and choose the whole kit from there. So the turbo that we're going to be choosing for this is the Turboloan Engineering EFR 7670 with an internal wastegate, as this is what TurboSource recommends to get us as close as possible to that 400 horsepower number. Now for heat management, we're just going to choose the Inconel Turbine Housing Shield just because it's recommended from them whenever you are purchasing this kit. Now in terms of engine management, we do get a lot, but I think that every single piece is worth it, and this includes Haltech Elite 750 with a harness, wideband, flex fuel upgrade that is E85 ready, oil PSI sensor, oil coolant and air temp sensors, and we also get a 3-port boost controller. Moving on to fuel system, we do get a lot with their FFE 400 horsepower fuel system upgrade, and this includes FFE primary and secondary fuel rails, ID 1050 primaries, ID 1700 secondaries, IDF 750 fuel filter, TurboSmart FPR6 fuel pressure regulator, and we also get a Walbro 460 liter per hour fuel pump. Now we finally do get to pick our clutch, and we're going to go ahead and pick the ACT XT / Performance Street Sprung clutch kit. So that is everything that comes with the turbo kit, and it really does check off a lot of the parts that we need. So it is nice that they lay it out this way, that you can kind of just order all the parts that you would need to be able to make that horsepower level, because there sometimes are kits where you go and all they really do give you is like the main turbo setup, which is like a turbo, and you get the intercooler and just parts like that, but then you also need to do your fueling upgrade, you have to get an ECU. So it's nice that they have it laid out in a way that really you can just order all the parts and you know that they're going to work together because they've tested it out before and they're selling it as this whole big kit. So they claim with this package that we can expect 360 rear wheel horsepower on pump gas as long as we are going with a 3-inch exhaust, which will come later. Now on E85 with the exact same setup, we can also expect to get 400 rear wheel horsepower. So that's pretty crazy, and I also always like to see just how much like horsepower can be added with E85, because it truly is amazing just like by adding different fueling how much horsepower you can just like simply get out of the engine. Now it's time to fill in some gaps from that turbo kit, and that is all starting with the exhaust. So take a listen to this, and I think you'll agree that it sounds pretty good. So we can accomplish this by getting the HKS silent high power exhaust, which I feel like is ironic considering that I think that this exhaust is actually pretty loud compared to its name, which suggests that it would be quieter. Next, it's probably good for us to invest in some sway bars, stop that body roll, give us some better handling, and for that we are going with the White Line front and rear sway bar kit. Now the last mod that we got is just NGK spark plugs, just to make sure that this thing's firing correctly. But with all that being said, we have finished the build for the RX-7. This is a really great power boost over stock, considering that we started with 150 horsepower and now we're all the way up at 400 horsepower. So this thing's just going to feel like a whole new car. I also think again that the turbo kit is just so nice because it does include a lot of the parts that you'd need, so it's really simple to figure out like everything that you would need to get to make this kit work together. Of course, we filled in some things here or there, but honestly, this is one of the best turbo kit setups that I've seen, where they just have everything laid out that you would need whenever you are going about this route. Thank you all for joining me for this build, and as always, drop a comment down below saying if you loved, hated, or just anything that you would change about this build, and also make sure to leave a comment down below if you guys have any recommendations for cars that you would like to see for this series. I think it's always interesting seeing what kind of cars you guys want to see, because of course I can come up with some of my own, but obviously if there's something that you guys would want to see, that would take preference over whatever I came up with. Thank you guys again so much for watching and supporting the channel. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.